Welcome to Jake and Trev Review Everything.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Trev. And this week we're going to be reviewing a Walter Hill double feature. Both movies from the 1980s, Streets of Fire, starring Michael Perry, and a movie from later in the 80s, Extreme Prejudice, starring Nick Nolte. Nick Nolte in a Walter Hill movie.
You're crazy.
Yeah, Walter Hill directed 48 Hours, wrote and directed.
Yes, wrote and directed.
He also did The Warriors, Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis. There are a few other ones. These are a couple of cult hits. I think Streets of Fire is more of a cult hit.
You are about to enter a world unlike any you've ever seen before, where rock and roll is king. The only law is a loaded gun. Where the beautiful,
Stay and see the show, it's really good.
the brutal,
I want Tom Cody.
and the brave all meet
From now on, it's for real.
in Streets of Fire.
Streets of Fire, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I think part of the reason that it's a cult hit, just on its surface, is that there are a lot of quotable lines in this movie. Like, absolutely, there's a lot of action, a lot of good action. I mean, a lot of people will complain today that there's a lot of CGI and there's not a lot of actual effects, practical effects. This movie is chock full of all that. The explosions are real, the squibs are real. You can pick and choose a lot of scenes from this movie that are badass, to say it simply. But overall, you kind of finish the movie and you're like, it really doesn't. It doesn't have much of an impact on you.
You have rock and roll, you have gangs, you have inept police officers, you have a lone gunman coming into town on the last train and setting everything straight, saving his old girlfriend. Stylistically, it kind of falls into a sort of, I'll call it 50s punk.
Yeah, there's a lot of old, like, Googie style 50s diners. There's a lot of shots of, like, under railways, like with the trestles in the middle of the street. There's a lot of that. Later on, there's another set that's in kind of an industrial area. They even say in the movie that the bar is directly in the middle of, like, a steel mill or a factory.
A foundry or something.
A foundry.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle of a big factory. It's the shits.
And so everything is all of the architecture kind of overshadows the sets.
That's why it reminds me of something that with that 50s style, but brought into more the 80s. You know, we were riding the wave of the industrial collapse here in America, the Rust Belt really kind of taking hold. So the idea of there being a large section of town that is abandoned factories and so forth was not an outlandish concept, and still isn't. This movie could easily be set in Detroit as well as it could have been in Chicago. In fact, at the beginning of the movie, they expressly point out that this is a movie that's set in another time, in another place. This is not our America. This is Walter Hill's America.
So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you should. If you don't have to, but we're gonna start spoiling, and this is where the spoiler sound comes in to tell you that we're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie.
There it is.
So this movie has one of the best openings I've seen in a long time. It just sucks you in. It gets you ready for everything. In the beginning, there is a rock show in another time and another place. And it's a woman who's singing songs that sound surprisingly like Meatloaf.
Yeah, all the songs in this movie are very much Meatloaf. Basically, in the beginning of the movie, she's singing an entire song. It's not just like a clip or anything. And then all of a sudden, she gets kidnapped by Willem Dafoe, who is not Defriend in this particular movie.
No.
He is definitely Dafoe.
You know, him and his gang wait carefully in the shadows, waiting, watching. And as soon as she's more or less done with their first song...
Which is polite of them.
Yeah, I would have probably thought that for the real element of surprise, just bum rush the stage.
Which they do, but they wait until the end of the song.
But they get up on stage and they sock her in the gut and just kind of throw her over the shoulder.
It's like the intro to the old Nintendo game Double Dragon. Like, apparently that's movie villain logic.
Mm-hmm.
Is, I really like this girl. I definitely need to kidnap that. I'd kidnap that.
There's definitely a theme in this movie of taking things that you think belong to you, and if you have the strength to take them, apparently it does.
Yeah.
There's pandemonium. People are pouring out of the theater. When they get outside, they're keel hauling people.
Oh yeah,
dragging them through the streets.
Absolute motorcycle mayhem. People are popping wheelies and dragging people through the streets,
and it's clear there is no law here.
Yeah.
The days after she's taken, various characters do discuss that they were taken by, I believe they're called the Bombers?
Yeah, the
Bombers.
And they're
led by Raven. So everyone knows who Raven is,
yeah.
And everyone knows where they hang their hat, which is that bar in the middle of an old foundry.
It's right in the middle of a big factory. It's the shits.
But there's no police action to go there and get her. It's like enemy territory, occupied territory that the law will not walk into.
This is the Bowser's Castle of the movie.
Mercy sends a letter to Tom Cody, a local hellion from back in the day who went off to join the army and came back an even tougher dude than he left.
There's a lot of exposition from the characters, like the two police officers in the main part of town are talking about him, like,
who the hell does that guy think he is? He's always been a real badass.
It's like, why are you talking about this?
It's good expository dialogue to get you familiar with the character as the viewer, but it doesn't make sense in any real context within the movie itself.
Yeah. So he shows up into town, and the first thing that he does is walk into the diner, and then there's some other low-level gang. It was very reminiscent of
the Roadmasters.
The Roadmasters. They have all matching jackets and stuff. Very reminiscent of the Warriors. And then
they come in, they're playing it tough, except Tom Cody's in the diner.
Go home.
And he kicks all of their asses and then steals their car.
What do you think of my new car?
Which is not really brought up for the rest, like not even the police are like, hey, isn't that the Roadmaster's car?
He's always been a real badass.
Yeah, it's a really nice car, and you'd think the Roadmasters would, eventually come back to collect the car, but they never show up again for the movie.
Tom Cody, the badass, the hero, shows up. He enlists the help of, he meets a tomboy.
Everywhere I go, there's always an asshole.
She counts kind of as a male character because she's so tough. I think that Walter Hill was like, how am I gonna make a character out of a woman that's not a piece of property or something?
Allegedly, the character was originally written as a male. Yes, Jake is 100% right. She comes across as a male because she was written that way.
Diane Lane character is kidnapped. Who is kidnapped is also Tom Cody's ex-girlfriend, and they split up for unknown reasons when they were young, and he went off into the military.
Yeah, how'd you like the army?
I like shooting at guns, but I didn't win no medal.
And there's a lot of dialogue about that. So Rick Moranis' character in this movie, he's kind of a slime ball.
How we doing here? We all set?
Hey, big crowd, huh?
Yeah, now one of them's got a pot to piss in. I never should have let myself get talked into this dumb benefit. I could be making some real money tonight.
He's the one who actually technically enlists Tom Cody to go rescue his girlfriend, because Rick Moranis is now going out with Diane Lane.
You must be Billy Fish.
Yeah. So what gives? Make it fast. My time is valuable.
And of all the things in this movie that will stretch your suspension of disbelief, this is definitely one of them.
And it's kind of interesting watching Rick Moranis play this character. He's usually a much more passive, kind of wimpy sort of character. And though he is sort of wimpy, he's very aggressive.
I'm the one paying you. That means you go get her, I wait here, and you bring her back to me.
You smart guys.
Listen, Skirt, let me make it simple for you. Take a hike.
Yeah.
He's very aggressive and trying to assert himself as the one being in control.
Hey, what's your problem? We're not taking no skirt along. Look, Butch, I buy and sell people more valuable than you every day. Let me tell you something. These clothes are worth more than you make in a year.
But so Rick Moranis and the tomboy and Tom Cody all get together and they take the stolen car and drive it to, apparently it's like 3 hours away.
Yeah, they leave in early in the morning. They believe it was like a noontime meeting.
Yeah, they just got done with like breakfast or brunch.
and then
I don't think they have brunch in that universe, but I assume
it's too hard and nasty of a universe for brunch.
You don't get brunch,
let alone second breakfast. But but no, it's. They leave in around noontime and they arrive in the factory district sometime later in the evening because it's now totally dark.
Oh, absolutely.
But, you know, I mean, that's good thematically for the kind of territory that they're going into. So, you know, they're in enemy territory. Things are looking dangerous. Rick Moranis keeps saying how it's the shits.
I started out there. It's the shits. It's right in the middle of a big factory. It's the shits.
So they get there and another music video.
One man stud, one man stud.
There's like a rockabilly band playing, and there are tits. There is a point where there's a woman who I assume is part of the band because she's got like her own personal stripper pole. And she's like doing the stripper pole dance while this it's really weird rockabilly music is playing. That music plays throughout the whole thing. So them going into enemy territory and trying to rescue Diane Lane is it's a music video in itself.
They encounter a very strange cameo along the way.
What the hell's that?
Guess you don't know who I am, do you?
Ed Begley Jr.
Ed Begley Jr. is in this for like half a second. They meet a hobo. Like, we have to assume he's a hobo. He's camping out in the middle of an industrial district. He's just like, hey, what's going on? So, yeah,
he also apparently read the script because he knows why they're there and what their mission is.
Yeah. And you think that it's being set up like they're giving him money, but then he's going to run off to the bomber's bar.
Pay him.
Oh, yeah, he's got traitor written all over him.
Yeah, he's going to go tell Raven, like, hey, there's some people coming in to steal Diane Lane back. But he never does. That's the only time that you see him in the movie.
Hey, you got to keep moving forward. That's the whole point of things. And thank you now, I appreciate it.
When you see Willem Dafoe inside the club or inside the bar, he's totally comfortable. He's relaxed. You know, there's no real sense of there being an alert or that they're getting ready for something or expecting anything.
Oh yeah, I just kidnapped her and no repercussions. The police, nobody is definitely going to make a crew of badasses to come and get her, let alone the police.
Nobody messes with the bombers.
Yeah, so he doesn't give a shit. Also, the waiters. The leather waiters?
Yeah, he's looking at
shirtless. Leather waiters.
He's so comfortable he was not going to hang out at the bar. He was getting ready to go for some, deep sea fishing expedition, fly fishing.
He could probably deep sea fish without a boat in these waiters.
And it turns out later that he may have also read the script because later he has to walk through a flaming street. Be aware, there literally is a street of fire in this movie.
Yeah, they go in, they get her, and then they blow a bunch of shit up.
Tom Cody's outside shooting gas tanks. It would seem he has a magic gun that shoots explosions, not bullets, because it's just flawless.
Yeah.
He's always been a real badass.
Like, after 2 motorcycles exploding, there are still people popping wheelies. Obviously, the bombers are like, oh, explosions, that happens all the time.
So McCoy and Ellen and Rick Moranis' character all take off, and Tom Cody's going to hang out and make sure that they make their escape. Just in time for the still waiters wearing Willem Dafoe to come outside and kind of share words with each other. But then, but in the conversation, something that never made sense is, well, to me as a person that lives in the real world, Raven asks Tom Cody who he is.
Now, why don't you tell me your name?
he says, "I'm Tom Cody."
Tom Cody.
I don't like egg on my face. He doesn't say that. That's from a terrible movie.
There's not even a line there. Willem Dafoe as Raven is like, "Who are you?"
Tom Cody.
You're dumb.
And up to this point, there were a lot of things that reminded me of the Warriors. You know, the street gangs, the kind of the unchecked youth, the no presence of any control, the lawlessness. And then it really goes into hyperdrive because now they have to do this kind of march, it seems, through enemy territory, like in the Warriors.
They have to ditch their car at some point because the police start following them because they blew up a bar. The police were not worried about a woman being kidnapped.
A major celebrity rock star being kidnapped.
she's big news. They're not worried about that, but they are worried when the bomber's bar gets bombed. So
probably because they're waiting for retribution.
Right. So they have to drop off their car and go on foot, which again, it was like a 3-hour drive to get there.
So it's going to be a long trek back, and you're seeing this setup now, like I said, the march through enemy territory, just like in the Warriors, and then it doesn't happen. They reach absolutely minimal interference on their journey back.
And the other thing that kind of bugs me about this, on their journey, it's very much like the Warriors, like, we gotta bop our way back to Coney, you know, like, they accumulate different characters. At one point, they're in, like, also a popular club, and there's a girl that shows up, and she notices who Diane Lane's character is, because she is a famous musician around town.
I know you. I know who you are, Dig. I love your stuff so much. I really do. No, look, I'm your biggest fan, really. Let me go with you, okay? I won't be any trouble.
And then she tags along, and that's it. That's her whole character.
And again, much like with Ed Begley's appearance, you're thinking, oh, she's going to be a traitor. She's going to lay hell on them and say, I'm with these guys, you know, call up the bombers. And it never happens.
At the end of this movie, there are so many guns stacked on top of the mantelpiece that have not been used.
You're just waiting.
You're just scratching your head like, what the fuck? See, this is kind of a journey movie, kind of like Star Wars. You start with Luke, and then he meets Obi-Wan and the droids, and then they meet Han and Chewie, and then they have to go and blow up the Death Star. And every one of those characters is important to A New Hope, in that they all serve some sort of purpose. The same thing happens in this movie, except for all the characters, about half of the characters that end up teaming up. They meet that girl, they meet a doo-wop band.
The Sorrells.
We're the Sorrells. I'm Bird. These are my associates. This is Lester, my man BJ, and that's Reggie.
The Sorrells, which excellent musicians, and they also get a music video later on.
No more timing, each tear that falls from my eyes.
But they're never really used. They end up encountering a police blockade, and they get through with pretty much no problem.
There's really no reason for the Sorrells to be here.
Yeah. So then they get back. Raven sends like somebody,
his top man, an emissary, to come and tell the local police that they want Tom, and they're going to be real gents about it. And then Raven meets with one of the two policemen who seem to operate in this part of town, and says,
I want Tom Cody. I want to nail that son of a bitch's head to the sidewalk under that marquee that says Ellen Aim on it. And just to prove to you, I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm coming in with just 2 of my men.
At this point, as Raven is literally explaining everything that he wants to do to this officer, in the real world, again, the cop would have, just been witness to this guy, admitting. So I'm thinking this guy has got to be the least competent police officer in the world.
You're dumb.
Then he goes and tells Tom that what's going on, and tells him to get the fuck out of Dodge, and they're going to be ready for Raven when he shows up. He goes to collect the bounty for going and saving Ellen from Rick Moranis. who pays him gladly.
You know, you play rough, Cody, but you do a good job. You should do a little more work for me when you get a taste of what that money will bring you.
Because now this means he's gonna be rid of Tom, but kind of takes a moment to jab at him about how he's the one paying him, so I'm the guy with the brains and the money.
Then you'll realize I'm the one with the brains around here, and you'll start treating me a bit nicer. You know what's wrong with that guy? He's stupid.
Tom leaves without taking the money, now overcome with a sense of duty that he needed to save his ex-girlfriend, and he leaves, and she goes after him, and it's pouring rain. It's a great set piece moment. It was fairly well shot, but as she chases out after him and calls out his name, and they embrace in the rain, and it's just pouring down, and they're these two passionate lovers together, and they just start making out hard. Like, it just kind of comes far out of left field.
And then they have sex.
Immediately.
It segues, it's like, and then in bed.
And they're in bed, and they're still wet, so they wasted literally no time in renting a hotel room, apparently probably in the motel room where Rick Moranis is still also staying.
And then she's like, we should just get out of here together, and everything will be fine.
You're dumb.
And he's like, all right.
He takes her to a train station, but this is all a part of Tom's ruse, because what matters to Tom more than the love of his life? Revenge. He tricks her into going into the train.
This is not the Bayside.
There's something back in Richmond I gotta take care of.
And then just decks her in the face!
What are you talking about?
He decks her in the face.
What are you talking about?
I've seen him punch people in the movie, men in the movie, less hard than he punched her.
What are you talking about?
Knocks her out clean in one shot.
What are you talking about?
And then basically sends her off to somewhere safe, otherwise.
So he can have this rumble.
He's always been a real badass.
He goes back into town. Willem Dafoe shows up with with the bombers. And then they all line up. It's almost like kind of a Braveheart or like a Lord of the Rings kind of deal where everybody's lined up, ready to do battle. But it's just between these two guys. It's between Raven and Tom Cody.
So it's the big showdown, and it's time for them to finally put their fists where their words have been, and they're going to have a fight. Are they going to fight with their hands?
Is it a strap match night fight, like I said earlier, like Beat It style?
No, it's a pick hammer fight.
Yeah, it's like
they're fighting like mining 49ers.
I don't know at what point Walter Hill was like, they have to have a duel, but it can't just be like a bare knuckle brawl. It can't be a shootout because nobody really, with the exception of like extraneous characters.
Tom's the only one who's really used guns at this point.
Other people have been killed in this movie, but they're not, Well, I mean, I guess you could get killed by a pickaxe too.
Well, I should hope so.
Yeah. Or like hammers. They're like rail spike driving hammers, basically. Mm-hmm. So Walter Hill was like, "Oh well, this is appropriate because there's so many fucking trains in this movie."
So they get in this hammer fight, and it looks like it's going to be pretty brutal. And it goes back and forth. But
oh yeah, Tom Paray in this movie is just unflappable.
He's always been a real badass.
Even when they have like the
cross,
where they're crossing the
struggling to.
And Willem Dafoe just has all of it, like he is just chewing the scenery.
He's really putting effort into it, and Michael Pere is just
like
a face of brutal determination on his face.
Yeah.
He's unflappable. I like that.
He's always been a real badass.
And so, of course, Tom Cody comes out on top.
Like nothing happens to the bombers; they just leave out of honor.
Which they pick up Willem Dafoe.
What's left of him
off of the ground? He's a broken and battered man, and his lieutenant kind of carries the load and brings him back out of town, and the bombers ride off to be bombers somewhere else.
And then basically Tom Cody tells Diane Lane's character that she should be with Rick Moranis, and that he's just not,
I'm not the man that she needs. I'm never much of the guitar-lugging type, I think was the line.
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of guy to be carrying your guitars around for you.
Yeah.
And so even though he had her cheat on Rick Moranis with him in a sweaty, rain-soaked, passionate night,
he's just like,
he was still content to leave her with him.
You're dumb.
So
And then he basically rides off into the sunset.
Declines the opportunity to kill Raven and really put an end to this, almost suggesting like maybe there was going to be Raven's Revenge, the sequel.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it was planned for a trilogy originally.
Yeah. Walter Hill really thought that Tom Cody and Michael Pare would hold an entire series. From beginning to end, it's so systematic, everything that happens. There's never a point where you really are worried for the character's well-being.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, it's got
There are
plenty of
no
action.
real obstacles.
All the characters are pretty one-note. I mean, more than a lot of movies do today. They really tried to flesh out the characters so that you knew what kind of characters they were. But it was really just them saying the same things over and over again to really reiterate. Like
He's
Rick
one tough son of a bitch.
Yeah, Tom Cody is really stoic and honor-bound.
A stoic character in a Walter Hill movie?
No.
You're crazy.
So yeah, that about really covers it. Once again, I couldn't recommend it as a movie to watch. It's just you have to watch it knowing what you're going into.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
really,
culty.
Yeah.
It's culty,
It's
and
a
there's
fun,
a lot of good stuff here.
It's a fun movie. It's filled with a lot of fun things. Obviously, that's why it's a cult movie. But
it's not a good movie.
It doesn't
got
have a lot of
good
payoff.
Stuff,
There's really not a lot of payoff in this movie.
So that's that'll do for the first part of the review. Moving on,
we're gonna cut it here, and then we're gonna have the next. We're gonna do Extreme Prejudice in the next video, so there should be a link for it coming up here, and then so watch the next part, and then we'll also talk about the compare and contrast from Streets of Fire and Extreme Prejudice as well. So for this portion of the video, I'm Jake.
I'm Trev.
And this is Jake and Trev Review Everything. Peanut butter disaster.